This is as fundamental as it gets. I'm going to teach you how to prime your miniatures perfectly every time with really consistent results with my top 5 priming tips. So before you have done anything, read the can, or at the very least look at the little pictures because they are super helpful. I might have some adjustments to them, but each of your cans and those infograms, the little pictures that demonstrate distance, temperature, whatever, do hold them in mind. Temperature is really important. Now, there are 2 temperatures to bear in mind. There is the temperature of the can, and there is the temperature of your environment, which if you're from the UK is bloody freezing at the moment. Now this one, it says 15 to 25 degrees C or 59 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The compact version of that is this can needs to be warm. So you can pop it in a water bath, that's super popular. If you do that, make sure you put the lid on. You don't want any moisture, screwing things up around the top of it. The other option is just to pop it up your jumper. I mean, if you're painting, if you pop it up there for 10 minutes, that will be enough to get it to a good solid temperature. I'm normally prepping my miniatures, so while I'm doing that, if I am going to be priming, then I take the primer and I pop it up my jumper. I do not recommend that you use a radiator, direct sunlight, or something like that to heat your can. It's not very controllable. It's a potentially volatile object, and too hot is definitely bad. So you want it warm, not boiling. Number 2 is the preparation of your miniature. Now there's an easy start to this. If it hasn't come from a factory sealed box, give it a quick dust. We've got Series D XL here. Primer will grab onto that, a dust, hair, even worse, bit of fluff, anything, it will grab onto it, and it will, potentially really, particularly in the middle of a smooth panel, that'll look awful. Dust will ruin your paint job. And then the second one is the physical prep of the miniature. Now I use sanding sponge for this. I'm gonna probably say sanding paper by accident. I mean sanding sponge. Anywhere between 600 and 3000 grit is fine, but keep it between 1000 and 3000 if you want to be super safe about it being a very, very smooth surface. Okay, now, of course I picked something completely impractical to fit on the desk. Good job, Byron, solid. But what I wanted to do is get something that's got a really long extended piece, or some sections, they're big, they're flattish, they're not hyper detailed, and they're going to show the type of thing that is going to show up in your priming. So let's get into this bad boy. Did we pick a good one? We did pick a good one. You see all of these differing areas, like that's not a line that's been sculpted there. You can actually see the mold's lines just about on this. That probably won't show up during priming, but this will. So when you prime this surface, it's going to finish shiny, and when you prime this surface, it's going to finish matte. I can also see some areas that I think are more shiny because of mold release, and then in there, I don't know what it's down to. We've actually got some kind of straight lines crossing the hull. Now they will show up slightly, and it's going to take us absolutely no time at all to give this a little bit of TLC. So I'm going to grab some 1000 grit. There you go, done. That's as far as I go. Grab yourself a stiff brush, or you can use the same brush that we use for dusting. Make sure you don't leave any fluff there, otherwise you're getting rid of one problem and adding another. But literally that is as far as you need to go. Let me find a more open section for the camera. Okay, this one here, we've got that. See, it shows up loads. There's a line that's showing up really obviously on camera there that isn't meant to be on the miniature. Done. Buffed out, super smooth, so it takes barely any time at all, and you will see benefits from doing this. You don't have to, but all of these things added together will help you achieve that perfect prime. The minimum that most people give for how much you should be shaking your can is about 2 minutes, which is obviously a really long time. For me, it doesn't have to be super aggressive, but a lot of movement for a fair amount of time really, really will make a difference. Now, whether your can is, like super old and sounds really rattly, or it is fairly new, it's just as important. So shake the living hell out of it for about 2 minutes. It's probably going to say 20 to 40 centimeters, 8 to 16 inches, something about that. I often use 15 to 30. Too close to your nozzle here, things are just unpredictable, uncontrollable, and there's quite a lot of paint in a small area. 20 to 40 is the distance for the spray to be fine, but also for it to still be wet enough to adhere to the model, dry to the model, get a good bond, and for it to form a perfect prime. If you are in dry conditions, you might want to go closer to that 20 centimeters part of that range, because your paint is going to be dry before it hits the model. So if you've ever primed and got a fluffy finish, that is because your paint has dried before it's landed on the model. Just go a little bit closer, not really close, you're going to have to be careful, but that will help remedy the drying out before it hits the model. This is going to bring us on to humidity being wet conditions, which are just a no. Ever, 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 don't ever prime a miniature in wet conditions, it's awful. So maybe take it into a garage and put some ventilation on or something like that. You can always open the windows afterwards, but you do not want to be doing it in humid conditions. If it is in a garage, be mindful of outlet points of, like, you know, dishwashers, tumble dryers, washing machines, that type of thing, because they will be putting moisture into the air. So cold is absolutely fine. You can maybe even go further because your spray is going to be, or, you know, towards that 40 centimeters end of that spectrum, because your spray isn't going to be dried out before it hits the miniature. So be mindful of the conditions you're working in. If it's hot, take some care. Cold and dry, absolutely fine. Do whatever you like. You know, really, really easy, forgiving. They are the ideal conditions for priming in, as long as your can is warm. It is legit cold. So thankfully, we've prepared our warm can. This is actually warm to the touch now. That's made a really big difference. Being careful with my distance, you should never, ever start or stop your prime on your miniature. And the reason for that is you'll get blobs and you'll get splutters. Neither of those are great. Go across in passes, turn the miniature around, go across in passes. It's fine, it's predictable, and it will absolutely increase the quality of your priming, you know, like in a second. The end splutters are particularly dangerous because there's a load of, the pressure lowers, and as a result, rather than getting a fine mist, you will literally get, you know, like fairly significant blobs. And if one of those lands in the middle of a smooth panel in particular, it's going to be very noticeable in your end paint job. So you want to avoid the blobs and the splutters. Blobs are bad. I'm not layering it up thickly on any one part, and I'm going to let anywhere dry before I return to it. So there we go. Perfect prime. That is my top 5 priming tips. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. It makes a big difference to us. And as ever, any suggestions, do pop them down below. We're happy to cover anything, however fundamental, basic, advanced, if I'm capable of it, all of that. I wanted to show this. So this is me priming badly on purpose, and I've done the exact opposite of every single thing that I spoke about in this video. So hopefully this shows up on camera. That looks horribly fluffy, very matte black, not smooth whatsoever. And what I did with that is I primed from too far away, unshaken can, moist conditions, and I didn't dust the miniature, and really predictably, I got a very bad result. So what you need to bear in mind from that is if it's that easy to go wrong on purpose, you just do the opposite, and that's easy to go right on purpose. So I wish you the best of luck with your priming. It is the most important stage of your miniature because it happens on all of them before you've begun, and happy painting. The last 10%, when your can feels suspiciously light, I do not use those for things that are meant to be high quality paint jobs. So I've got many other uses, some of them are actually to my side. I like my painting racks to be primed black. These were made of wood. I really like how that looks, and I sometimes use it for terrain as well.